Steve, as we know, in the 70s, made comedy into the new rock and roll, selling out arenas that, where bands like Led Zeppelin would play. And Jerry, you've been doing stand-up steadily with huge success for 45 years. Both of you feel very strongly about the technique and the craft of writing jokes. And I'd love to hear you describe, each of you, your process for coming up with a bit, shaping it, refining it. How does it start?
The thing I like about writing comedy or any kind of writing is there's no rhyme or reason to it. Nobody knows how to do it. Nobody has figured out anything. Everyone's free to do it. And I kind of like that complete chaos. An interview earlier today, and the guy said, quick question. And I just said, what is a quick question? Is it going to be less words? Does it mean my answer is short? It's just one of these annoying little things that people say. So I will write something like that down and see if it annoys other people the way it annoys me. I'll just play with it.
Performing live it's just an ongoing exercise with a line. You trim it, you make it longer, you do a different setup, you knock out part of it, you keep trying it night after night. I think Jerry writes more perfectly than I could. Like, honestly, I feel about Jerry's lines, you go, that's so beautifully cadenced.
So it sounds like what begins as a kind of something loose and lumpy on a yellow legal pad then just gets honed and honed and honed by performing it live. And when I first picked up your book, Jerry, I was startled because, just even the way it's laid out, typography, right. It almost looks like a book of poetry. A joke is obviously a precision instrument. Every word is a beat. You used the word cadence before. And Steve, in your long stand-up career, I imagine the same thing, that you really honed those things.
Absolutely true. I did stand-up for 18 years and, honed it and worked it. Really honed everything down so much I no longer had any material. I took 4 hours and whittled it down to an hour, and then I just quit.
Right. So the title of the book, Jerry, is This Anything? And it's about the way comedians routinely, in this honing process that we've talked about, they try out bits on each other and say, is this funny? Is this funny? I mean, who was the first time you met like another funny kid?
Interesting that you would even ask that, because I don't know, for me, that was a gigantic moment in my life when I met another funny kid, which was in 3rd grade. I was so excited because you start laughing together in a way that you don't, before that.
I mean, I learned a lot from a comedian named Gary Muldear. Do you know him?
Of course, Gary? I remember Gary very well. Yeah. Very funny guy. Yeah.
Well, I knew him when I was 18 or 19.
Right.
And I would notice that he would be funny just kind of looking around. He would see something and pick it up and say something about it. You can just look around and come up with stuff. And it's kind of what Robin Williams used to do very well. But I learned just keep your eyes open and your ears open.
When we were young and you tried to write jokes, it was just like pushing a wheelbarrow through wet sand. And now there's an ease to it and a pleasure in it that I did not have.
But what you mentioned is the pleasure. I get so much more pleasure out of it now because it feels just fun.
Your future is not in the balance.
I thought, I feel so much more at ease writing comedy now than I ever have in my life. It just seems to come easier. I can quickly write a punchline to something, but also you've just done it for so many years, and maybe you do get better at it.
It sounds like you have more comfort and confidence doing it kind of as a solitary pursuit. Earlier, I sort of get the picture of you younger, sort of gaggles of other comics spouting off around each other. I mean, in the book, Jerry, you say that even today, when you're in the company of other stand-up comedians, you feel like you're rolling around in a litter of puppies. I mean, do you still feel that way?
Well, there's an energy around comedy people that is unlike any other social energy.
I like to be with comedians because I feel an empathy. I feel we've both done the same thing, and we understand something that other people can't possibly understand.
When you have a comedic perspective, you kind of think that the entire human experience is just kind of this silly charade, and it's all funny to you. Everything is funny.
They call you, what do they call it? Observational comedy. That.
Yeah, I've always hated that
great
term,
joke
actually.
about
Everything everybody talks about is based on something they've observed. Are there comedians that do things and they talk about things that they have not observed?
I don't describe Jerry as observational. I mean, when I see Jerry's show, I feel like I kind of described it as sitting back in an easy chair with this sort of great pilot, and it's a very gentle comedian, and it's just this beautiful rhythm that flows and flows and flows, and does all the things that other comedians have to pace the stage and yell and say the fuck and say everything. It accomplishes all those things.
Well, that is so nice, Steve, to hear you say that. That is unbelievable. A nice compliment. Thank you.
Kind of a funny tour guide to the whole world. But Steve, that reminds me, think about your beginnings. Before you became a stand-up, you were a comedy writer for the Smothers Brothers, whose show got canceled because of its anti-Vietnam stance. And during a time when a lot of the comedy was angry and political, George Carlin, Richard Pryor, you were the cheerful, clean-cut guy. It was absurd and funny in a serious time.
Every comedian did politics. 1971, I thought, things are going to change. Cut my hair, I shaved my beard, and I put on a suit rather than my hippie clothes. I took out every sort of curse word, and I became like an accountant.
The suit would work the way it did. Just everything. It was like a pure invention of yourself.
I don't know. I think the nation was just kind of ready for something a little goofy.
Unbelievable piece of self-design.
There were so many of these really out there high concept ideas like stand-up comedy for dogs, or taking the audience out of the club and taking them all to McDonald's. They were intellectually so brilliant, but at the same time just so goofy. Steve's act could be funny with the sound turned off because it actually just was so funny to look at. But your kind of visual acuity is more just descriptive.
A stand-up comedy is a completely visual exercise. You're just describing what you see. And if you describe it well, and if it's a funny thing that you're seeing, they will laugh. But it's basically you're describing a picture in your mind. That's what a joke is to me.
One of the things that Lorne Michaels likes to say about comedy is that it's polite hostility, which maybe that's a Canadian take, but kind of a corollary to that. There's an old line that and the average comedian is 3 parts funny and 1 part Ethel Merman. Neither of you seems to have that needy, angry, hostile thing. How are you so well adjusted and so successful at the same time?
But the aggression and the hostility, or maybe a better word might be irritability, is an essential ingredient. If you're not easily irritated, I think it's hard to be funny. There is a certain anger in it that makes us laugh because we all have it. But the comedian gives it a candy shell, and it's so much fun. It's so much fun, and the audiences really they feel that that kind of release. You're kind of releasing that pressure for them.
Well, Jerry, you had kind of taken a break from the constant stand-up when you were filming Seinfeld. In the book, you write about how a couple years after Seinfeld ended, you went to see Chris Rock and another comic, and just thought, oh my God, look at those guys. I miss that. I used to know how to do that. And you decided to go back. And when you did come back, did you find that the rules about what you could joke about had changed?
I thought I would, after the TV series, that I would have a completely different level of confidence. And now I can say whatever I want. And I found that was not the case, that I didn't have any more confidence than I had before. And it took just as much work. And the rules are constantly changing. Culture is not a solid, it's a liquid. That's the excitement of comedy. It's like just jumping into the ocean surf and trying to swim. And you have to adjust to these forces that are greater than you. That's the art and skill of comedy.
Think about it all the time. Can we say that? Because what you don't want in the middle of your comedy show is to be booed. Suddenly everybody's laughing, and suddenly it's being booed, and that's a comedy killer.
Right. I mean, what about the pandemic? I mean, here we are talking about comedy in these little boxes on screens. What do you two make of what we're all going through right now, and what effect it's going to have on this business?
When we can come back, we'll come back, and people will make jokes about it, and that'll probably be a huge catharsis, I think, for people to be able to laugh at something being in the past. I was doing this thing the other day about, when this began, it's like they said, okay, we're going to have to completely stop everything that's going on in the world. But we don't want you to touch your face, which is the one thing you just want to go, what are you talking about? You're stopping the whole world. And don't touch how can I not touch my face?
Yeah. Now, Del Close, the improv guru from Second City, apparently said on his deathbed he was tired of being the funniest guy in the room. Is it a burden, being these professionally very funny guys?
Yeah, Steve is really funny all the time. He is like you would dream that he would be at a dinner party. I have to really psych myself up to be a little entertaining. I find it difficult when I'm in normal situations to be funny.
When I first started doing my big act, because it was so extreme, and people would think I was that. And I couldn't be that anywhere but on stage. So people were, always disappointed.
There's
what a crazy thing for people to expect you to act like in a normal life.
I had a hair cutter, a young woman. She was like 25, and she would cut my hair. And she told me once, people would say, "You cut Steve Martin's hair?" And she goes, "Yeah." Is it so funny? And she goes, "No."
Jerry, there was a page in your book where you described going to birthday parties with your kids, and like there'd be a clown entertaining, and the clown would sometimes take you aside and ask for pointers. And
yeah, he would say, "Can you help me? With my comedy career?" And I said, "What do you want to do?" He said, "I want to get on television." I said, "Well, I just went from television to these parties myself. I don't know how to do it in reverse."